How are you, Kurt?
I am doing extremely well. Another good game last night, and man, it's just a fun time of year. I love that all these games have such big implications, and we're going to be talking about every single game and all these teams moving forward. It's just a fun time of year.
I mean, last night had everything from like a Plinko chip interception returned for 6 against Seattle, and then Seattle going on a huge momentum swing to take a lead, and then realizing that perhaps punting the ball might stunt the momentum and fake punting. I mean, that had everything last night, Kurt.
It did. We talk about it, and, sometimes we look from the outside, but when you've actually played the game, that whole thing that we call big momentum is a real thing. And, it's tough to stop when the other team has it. But once you gain it back, it's difficult to overcome. And so when you have teams that are able to do that, kind of weather the storms and overcome it and make big plays, and Seattle just seems to be one of the best teams in the league at doing that. Like, there's never any panic. And, so often they find themselves down or behind early in games. And they don't panic. They just weather the storm. They know they're going to get an opportunity, and then when they do, they take advantage of it. And I think that's, it's all about leadership. Guys like Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll are so good at staying upbeat and positive in those situations. And we saw that last night. And and I thought, oh gosh, no way Minnesota's going to come back. And then they make a couple great drives and make the thing interesting down the stretch. So you're right. It was a fun game, knowing that both teams needed it really badly. It was a fun game to call and watch because there was a lot of big game-changing type plays within the game.
And, it's also that building too, Kurt, and it's also the time of night, a primetime game in that building with the 12s. It really is something to see momentum going, and then when they come up with a big play, it just charges the whole building. And now they're in a bye week position to self-control it the rest of the way. How viable are the Seahawks to you to win it all this year, Kurt?
It's interesting because, I was kind of looking at that with the NFC, and I still, every week, I lone wolf Minnesota this week because
Yes.
I watch Seattle, and I don't think they're a great team top to bottom. I don't think they have a bunch of great players. And so I kind of always wait for things to catch up with them. Their defense isn't quite as good, and they've got some issues, and they give up some plays. And offensively, they're not great at passing the football, even though they're really good at running it. And I just think, okay, it's going to catch up to them. We're playing another good team. Yet they continue to find ways to win. And so I look around the NFC, and I still think the same thing about Seattle. I think, man, teams like San Francisco are more balanced. Teams like New Orleans are more balanced. But I think those are the only two teams I look at and say Seattle, and again, I don't even want to say Seattle can't beat them. They've already, beaten San Francisco at San Francisco, so we know they can. But I look at those two teams and say I think they're more complete teams than Seattle is. And so I put Seattle probably at the number 3 position in terms of going to the Super Bowl. But you have Russell Wilson, and as you said, if you're playing in that building, if you end up getting the number 1 seed and play in that building with those fans, they are going to keep it close, and Russell is going to have a chance to win those games late. And I think they are a viable option, even though I don't put them at the number 1 spot, because of how I look at their entire team.
And then, there are the Saints sitting out there, too. I know we're all focused on the 49ers, certainly because they just took care of business against, or they almost took care of business against the Ravens. That Teddy Bridgewater first start, man, happened up in Seattle, and that might be the tiebreak that sends everything through the Superdome, as I mentioned at the top of the show today. And I know that the Saints have been so-called struggling against some division opponents lately. I'm wondering, what do you see on film? I want to get into some of your film study about the Saints and how they can be equipped to win it all this year themselves.
Well, I think, again, with the Saints, I don't know if from top to bottom I say they're a great team. But I do believe that they can beat you different ways. I think they can stop the run. They can get after you with their defensive front. Cam Jordan, leading the charge there. I believe they can run the football. They've got a good offensive line. They have the ability to run the football. We saw that at different times this year, especially when Drew was out a little bit and Murray came in. he ran the football extremely well, went over 100 yards a couple times. And then you still have Kamara. Drew Brees is still Drew Brees, and Michael Thomas is as good as they get. So they've got some really good pieces and some lots of ways to beat you. When I watch them, though, something just doesn't seem to be clicking perfectly for them yet, and thus the reasons that they struggle a little bit, or like last week they got way up on Carolina, and then Carolina comes all the way back and really has a chance to beat them, and they hold on and win in the end. It's things like that where it's like, that's not the Saints team that I've come to expect. But I still do believe, when you look at the totality of their team, they're the second best team in the NFC, I believe, behind San Francisco. And it's going to be a great matchup. I mean, those two teams play this weekend, and you mentioned it. How huge San Francisco going from the 1 seed to the 5 seed. And now they have, they're playing New Orleans, and New Orleans sitting up there at the 1 spot and has, that chance to take control. But San Francisco, I think, could very easily beat New Orleans and throw this thing all out of whack. And as you said, put Seattle up there, the number 1 spot, with those two teams having a matchup in Seattle later in the year. I mean, I just love where we're at. And I do like New Orleans, but when I watch the film, something just is off a little bit with them, that I'm not ready to say that they're world beaters quite yet.
Maybe because we haven't seen the Kamara dominating performance all year. The one where he can't be stopped, where he's coming out of the backfield as a matchup nightmare, or just running over people. We haven't seen that yet, and maybe it's just because he isn't right physically, or it's more of a Michael Thomas offense. Maybe that's what you're missing by seeing them right now.
Yeah, and I think just having it all clicking is what I'm waiting for. Because as we said, there's times they run really well. There's times where they dominate in the air. They throw it to Michael Thomas. But yeah, I haven't seen all those pieces, which we know are really talented, come together and play well at the same time, and them just dominate people as of late. And I think they have the capabilities of doing that. Haven't done it yet, and I agree. I think that's what I'm waiting for.
Kurt Warner here on the Rich Eisen Show, making his way out of Seattle. So there's 5 10-2 teams, which is amazing. You've already mentioned 2 in the Saints and Seattle not being, from your opinion, great from top to bottom. Which one is? Is one, in your opinion?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
You already said that the Seahawks and the Saints are not great teams top to bottom from what you're saying. Is there a 10-2 team in your mind that is? Which one is?
Well, I tell you what, I do like 2 of the teams, and I like those 2 teams we saw last week in Baltimore and San Francisco. I thought that was a great football game. I thought it lived up to the billing. 2 teams that I believe can beat you in any way, shape, or form. They can beat you on defense. They can beat you running the football. And the quarterbacks have shown they can make enough big plays to beat you through the air as a complementary piece. I thought San Francisco was affected more by the weather last week than Baltimore was, and that was the difference in the game. When I went back and watched the tape, I really felt like San Francisco could have easily won that game, and I didn't know if I was going to say that going in because I thought Baltimore was that hot. But I believe those are the 2 best teams in football and the most complete teams, and have pieces to be able to do a lot of different things. And so I know 5 teams up there at 10-2, but I would say those 2 teams, in my opinion, are the 2 best teams in football right now.
What did the tape reveal from Patriots-Texans for you, Kurt?
Well, a couple things. First of all, I didn't know if the Texans had that in them to go against a good Patriots team, and specifically a good Patriots defense, and stand up and show up the way that they did and really dominate offensively. I mean, Deshaun Watson was incredible on schedule, and then incredible, as usual, off schedule. Didn't know if he was going to be able to do that on schedule as well as he did. They dominated up front, which surprised me as well. And then I think the other side of it, that Romeo Crennel and company did a great job of calling that game. And there were certain times that I just wrote on my notes, perfect defense. Whatever it was against that particular run or that particular pass, they just had the perfect defense numerous times. But I think the bigger issue there is the Patriots offense is just a mess right now. And I know the narrative has been thrown out there that, nobody's open. Well, I disagree with that. I went back and watched the film, and I thought there was a lot of guys open. And now everybody wants to say, well, that means that it's all Tom Brady. No, it's not all Tom Brady, but there is some blame to go to Tom Brady. But I think there's times it's scheme. There's times that it's their offensive line. Yeah, there's times that it's their receivers, and there's times that it's Tom Brady. And I think the fact that things aren't working very well, we kind of talked about this on the show last week, the fact that things aren't working very well has Tom so frustrated that he gets off of reads sometimes too early as guys are getting open. Or he forces balls to certain guys, that he knows a little bit better instead of allowing the defense to tell him where to go with the football. There's times in the game where I couldn't figure out why he was looking a certain direction instead of another direction. And then, of course, there's times when he's looking for guys or expecting guys to do something, and they don't do the right thing. And so you put all that together, and you put the ball in somebody's hands. It's a very tough place to be when you're not really sure what you're going to get. You're not really sure how long the protection's going to last and how long I can wait on a receiver. And this receiver didn't do the right thing the last time, so can I wait on him because the defense is telling me I'm supposed to throw it to him? Can I wait on him this time and expect him to do the right thing? Oh, I'm not going to. I'm going to go away from it. Yet then that guy gets open this time. And so it's a tough place to be, and I just think it's different for Tom Brady. He's used to scheming guys open. He's used to being able to look at Gronk out there, and even if Gronk's somewhat covered, say, I can still throw it to Gronk and make a play because I know I'm good enough to throw it where I want to throw it, and Gronk's good enough to win that matchup or get the football. And so he's been used to kind of jamming it in sometimes to his number one read with good players. And right now they don't have those kind of players. So you have to go through progressions more, and you got to get through things a little bit faster, and you got to be a little more patient with things. And I think that's what's throwing their offense off right now.
Wow. All right. Before I let you go, that's quite a mouthful. So, look, Brady's neck up, got so much experience as we know. I mean, I don't even need to set this up. Belichick, they probably see this in real time. They might not even need to see the film in real time. So what's the fix? What's the fix here? They know what's wrong.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, as I always say, if you can pinpoint one thing as the problem, I think it's easy to go and, okay, we're going to address this and we're going to figure out how we can fix this one area. The biggest problem is there's too many areas right now. And so I don't know how you fix all of those areas, these young guys, to get them up to speed, your offensive line, to know how to protect them so they can protect Tom Brady. Tom Brady, in that mind, as you said, he's so good from the neck up. But to get him to settle in and understand he's got to play the game a little bit differently now because he doesn't have the same weapons, that is a whole bunch of stuff you have to correct at one particular time. And so I don't really know the answer to that. I don't know how you fix, 4 or 5 different issues where everybody's taking their turn. How you fix that quickly. I think it's just going to take time. And the question will be, do they have enough time to kind of wait this thing out and at some point hit a bit of a stride where even though they're going to depend on their defense more, they can do enough offensively come playoff time to beat some of these good offensive football teams.
All right, so looking over, the last one for you, Kurt, looking over the Week 14 steering wheel, which one, I'll give you 4 options, which one features the biggest chance of an upset? Cowboys-Bears, and we all know, even though they're each 6-6, what the upset would be with the guy to your left on our game day morning set. Then you've got that one. Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, Patriots, Seahawks, Rams. And we all know what the upset would be in Chiefs, Patriots, too, despite how red-hot Mahomes looked against the Raiders. What do you got for me?
Well, in those scenarios, I'm going Chiefs. Their defense is starting to become a little more opportunistic. And I think what we've seen with the Patriots is that when you have teams that can score on them, that's what's giving them problems. So the Ravens jumped out early on them scoring-wise, and they weren't able to get back into it. The Texans jumped out early on them scoring-wise, and they couldn't get back into it because their offense isn't working. I believe the Chiefs, we saw it, last year, that they can score on this defense, and they've got the playmakers in one-on-one situations to do that, that I believe they can jump out on them and score some points and force Tom Brady and company to keep up with them. And that, to me, is not a good scenario right now with where the Patriots are. So I'm definitely going Chiefs for that.
All right. Well, and then also just to front load for our Saturday meeting for Sunday game day morning, even with whatever happens for Cowboys Bears, while you were making your way to the airport, Jerry Jones spoke on his radio show today, Kurt, and had this to say about Jason Garrett being qualified to win a Super Bowl. And which coach would be if not him. He said this, quote, "Nobody has the exclusive skills to get the job done so that collectively you can win a Super Bowl. But there are qualified people. Jason Garrett is one of them. In my opinion, Jason Garrett will be coaching in the NFL next year."
Will be coaching in the NFL next year.
And then he left it at that. Yeah.
Okay. He's always good for us, isn't he?
So basically, Kurt, he could be coach of the Cowboys, and if not, he can use Jerry as a reference.
Well, that sounds like a good reference. I mean, yeah, Jerry's got a lot of love for him.
He's got a bust in the same room as you, right?
Yes, he does. One of my classmates.
All right. Well, get ready for that conversation. It's coming. It's coming, man.
I can't wait.
All right,
can't wait.
Kurt.
Especially since they play Thursday.
They do. I mean, and that's so much on the line right there. All right, last one for you. I lied. Trubisky, what do you think? What's going on with him? What are you seeing here?
I think the bottom line is he's still growing. You know, that I don't think we've seen everything that Mitch is going to show us throughout the course of his career. Talked about it for the last couple of weeks. He's one of those that really I struggle with because he makes some really good plays, and, he excites you at times, and you've seen games where he can put games together where you go, man, this kid has a chance once he settles in and grows into the position. And then you see the other side where you're just like, what are you doing? What are you looking at? So, again, I don't know how long you can wait with a guy like that, kind of like a Jameis Winston. You see enough that excites you. You see enough that makes you shake your head and throw your hands up. And I think Mitch is still at that point. I think the question simply becomes, what's that cutoff point where I need to see more consistency from him because we just don't see it right now.
Boy, Thursday night's going to be amazing. Last night was terrific too, Kurt. I listened to much of it. Great job, and I'll see you in a few days.
All right, buddy.
You got it.
Wait.
You got it. You got it. That's Kurt Warner.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.